Let us begin. So 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the metaverse. We're going to summarize before we get into this week's topic, but I don't want to say anything. I don't want to summarize before I ask what we got from that session. I think everybody who's currently online was there. So I want to give us an opportunity to have a discussion about what we got from that session. If we got or remember anything. If not, then the summary is going to be even more valuable. So yes, don't all put your hand up at the same time, but yeah, what do you remember? And what did you get from it? What do you think you learned, and how do you think we can use it as a body going forward? Or any of your thoughts. I don't want to actually direct what you say. Do I have to choose someone?
Praise the Lord. I think that I was thankful because I saw the sovereignty of God, where He is actually forewarning and preparing the saints, just telling us what's ahead. Because even after going through the study and some of the stuff that you began to see and watch, etc., you realize that God is not he's intentional in the things that He does, and He doesn't leave us in the dark. And I really liked the idea when you spoke about, what we need to actually do, some of the things that we can actually do to prepare ourselves, make ourselves ready to face this reality, because it's not that, oh my gosh, it's evil and it's going to do this. And the thing is that we can't run from it because it's going to happen, but it's how we begin to prepare ourselves as the body of Christ to just continue the work of God, contending with this evil.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to pick up on what you talked about was the things we can do, the counterattack almost, because God is not behind, and because we have the word, so we should be proactive. Although we might not know specifically what's coming, we know what's coming. And I was going to do another section on courses of action we could take. So more of the counterattack, but I'm going to leave that for another time, because I think that's something that still needs to be downloaded, so to speak. So we're actually going to come back to this subject, but I feel when we come back to it, I'll have it in my head better so that I can summarize this metaverse thing and this strategy and all that we talked about, summarize it better, because I actually taught this again on another session. It took me another hour and a half. And it's not that I don't want to, I think that we shouldn't have to, we shouldn't teach for so long, but I feel like there's a place where I want to get this subject in my head in such a way that I can show the problem in a much shorter time and spend an equal amount of time on the solution. And I think that's going to take a lot of prayer and fasting, and not just me. Together as a body, as a people, we need to come together to do that. So we're definitely going to come back to this, because this is not going away, as you said, but we definitely need to know what we're going to do, how we're going to do it as a body, and how we want our children to be a part of that, because they are, as we have seen, the ones who are primarily targeted for this. Because the metaverse is not going to get me. And many older people, it might not inflict, or it might not get them as much as it gets the children. So, I'm not worried about it for me, but I think for our young people, we definitely need to have something to say to them about this. Anything else before we go to the summary? Nothing? All right, let's summarize this then and move on to
just one thing I wanted to say. just a small thing, but a horrible thing was just that whole thing about sexual abuse that's happening online, which of course is, well, it's very significant, but, and of course, you know, it's sold as a wonderful thing, and like the internet, you know, there are wonderful things that you can do and all of that, but that is a horrific side. And the other thing that actually you didn't particularly mention it, but I'm quite concerned about the takeover of people's mind with this blockchain. Yeah, but I won't go into that. But I find that people are being very seduced by it.
The cryptocurrency craze. Yeah,
there's something that really doesn't sit right with me about it, and it almost seems to. And I've seen many Christians and very intelligent Christians, business people that are very seduced by this. This is really sifting people. In fact, let me put it another way. I've seen very few people that have said no.
Well, the thing about cryptocurrency, as we saw in the study, it is what will grease the wheels of this strategy. The online strategy, the interact with people, but not face to face, create a new universe, exist in it, live in it. The cryptocurrency is what is going to enable people to make this metaverse a false universe, if you know what I mean. And a lot of people are putting their trust in investing in it, but at the end of the day, as the people of God, we are not trying to store up riches. You know what I mean? Our end game is heaven. And if we get too seduced by, the church needs to be into cryptocurrency, well, but the church is going to be taken away. So why are you so in? And I know some people are saying because we're not going to be able to buy or sell. But then, even if that is the case, what will never ever be less valuable is going to be land and the means to produce and access to water. So, whereas in the metaverse, I'll be able to, potentially hack your account and delete it. You can't delete my land. So, if people are trying to go down that route, which they're trying to go down, actually it doesn't make sense because money's not really real and cryptocurrency is definitely not real. So we should be encouraging people to buy land and grow food, like Jeremiah was telling the children of Israel when they went to Babylon: buy land, grow food, raise a lot of children, and bless the city. So it's funny how those basic examples thousands of years ago are still what we should be doing now in Babylon, so to speak.
I couldn't say for sure, but well, we know that some of them are money laundering anyway.
Oh yeah, a lot.
We can't say that all of it. I don't know, but this is the whole problem. We don't understand it. But the other thing is that scripture, the love of money is the root of all evil, really seems to tie in with this. Because for me, wouldn't you be scared of that whole, when you can see this magic money happening within a couple of hours, of becoming obsessed with it? I don't see how you can, when you can make this magic money so quickly.
Easy come, easy go.
Yeah, the whole, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
We know that's not biblical, but it's like these things come to mind.
It's as you said, I think the key thing you said, it's sifting people. For those who are susceptible to the love of money and those who are in a situation where they need to trust God and not try to manufacture situations to get money, they're going to be sifted because they're going to think, okay, here's the next get rich quick scheme. And because there's so many people who've been made millionaires and billionaires overnight because of cryptocurrency, if they're of that mindset, they're going to get caught up, unfortunately. So that is definitely a big conversation that, sorry, I need to close my window, that we're going to have and talk about. And I think, yeah, that is something that is definitely key. I'm going to skip through some of the summary, but I have some videos, so everybody obviously can go back and watch it. We did talk about digital escapism and how that is a big thing and will become a bigger thing. But I want to focus on the strategy to trap our children, because that is our focus this year, about restoring the man, the woman, and the family. And the particularly dangerous part about this metaverse was what we were talking about, what it does to the child's brain, and the scientific studies, which was saying that, you know, it found distinct differences in how adults process virtual reality, and then children. And so adults appear to be able to control and regulate their VR presence experience by critically evaluating and monitoring the presented virtual environment stimuli. Children, on the other hand, did not, or at least to a greatly reduced extent. And this researcher said that one consequence might be that one should be more reluctant to expose children to emotional and virtual stimuli as currently practiced. Then further on, it talked about when compared to non-immersive VR condition watching a television screen, children in VR showed a significant deficit in inhibitory control. How children react to media is often particular concern because of their prefrontal cortex. The area that is associated with emotion and behavior regulation is not completely developed. So we talked about how this thing is coming to rewrite the way our children think and to mess with their brain. And we were talking about how this, you know, whole transhumanism thing, this is all part of it, because if your child is on this stuff from early, it's going to change the way they think and perceive and feel. And because they're a part of building this VR universe or metaverse, it's going to basically become a reality, to the point where you're not going to be able to tell them it's not real, because they were part of building it, and so on and so forth. And so I found some videos online that I wanted you to see. So let us play them. Watch this one first.
Perhaps you've seen videos like this appear in your social media feeds lately. Stop! The concept is pretty simple. Parents prank their kids by unplugging the child's video game console in the middle of gameplay, and the reactions are viral gold. I'm getting away! Stop! Stop! No one likes to be forced to stop having fun, but something different is happening here. If you were to take away a child's books or Legos, you're not likely to get a reaction like this. So what's going on here? Why are these meltdowns so dramatic?
I've treated a number of children over the years who struggle with problematic video game behaviors. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is that the child will be able to tell you, I'm trying to not do this, but I can't stop. And I can't get myself to stop. I don't want to behave this way, but I'm struggling.
Why did you do that? That was my game to get into the Overwatch League. You literally just ruined it.
According to Dr. Milham, these reactions aren't necessarily because of an addiction to gaming. Instead, what we witness in these videos are children who are victims of their own biology.
Being able to tolerate the feeling of frustration or that moment of sadness when you decide, I'm not going to continue doing this, that is crucial.
One of the reasons the children in these videos find it so hard to control themselves is because they don't yet have a fully developed prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex is a key component in the brain that's involved in helping us to control impulses and urges. When you have something like the video game being turned off suddenly, the child is faced with having to feel those negative emotions.
Another factor is dopamine, which is often referred to as the brain's pleasure chemical, because it's associated with feelings of euphoria, motivation, and concentration.
Dopamine is a key component of regulating reward mechanisms in the brain. The stimulation we receive from playing a video game impacts the same pathways that are present when one is becoming intoxicated with a substance. So it's no surprise that many of the behaviors and reactions that we see for a child who's struggling with having this sudden stop brought about in their video game playing has analogs to someone who is being asked to stop usage of a substance.
Let's say a child is about to eat a piece of candy. The anticipation of eating that candy gives the child a spike of dopamine. Then their parent yanks that candy away from them. That action will cause a drop in dopamine, which will upset the child. Video game designers have gotten remarkably adept at keeping gamers entranced with a steady source of intermittent rewards. More rewards means a constant stream of dopamine released into the brain throughout gameplay. So when a parent pulls the plug on a child's video game, there's an even more powerful effect.
Video games are inherently designed to be stimulating and exciting and to draw us in, and that to some degree is a healthy phenomenon. It's just that for some it's more difficult to control than for others. Is the video game somehow impairing their ability to function in the home, at school, or with other children? If we're not seeing any problematic behaviors and it's just concern about the frequency, then I think we can work on just trying to bring the frequency down.
For many households across the country, meltdowns over video games are a very real part of everyday life. Parents we have spoken with say they find themselves in a battle of wills with their children when they tell them to turn off a video game and do homework, eat dinner, or go to bed. Dr. Milham recommends implementing 2 basic rules. Number 1, establish clear and consistent rules about the days and time of gameplay. Number 2, enforce a transition period between gameplay and bedtime. Dr. Milham also recommends that parents be wary of an underlying problem. Games may just be a coping mechanism.
One of the most important things is to really curb the video game playing and monitor it and put interventions in place before it's a problem. Once the video game playing becomes a problem, at that point parents will probably need to seek guidance from whether it be therapists, counselors, or other care providers in order to help to assess and deal with the challenges at hand.
Anybody have any key takeaways from that video and how it relates to what we were talking about last week? I've got 3 things I want to mention, but anybody want to go first?
The linking to it being the same as taking drugs, so it's an addiction. The inability to control the emotions, you know.
Away, like when you take away like heroin from a drug addict or alcohol withdrawal symptoms for an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So it's like, so people are going to be a perpetual baby, you know, with the inability to regulate.
And this is just 2D computer gameplay. This is not even the metaverse, which is, as we saw, a whole nother level of stimuli.
Yeah, and the fact, and the other key thing is that it's a blooming epidemic.
Yeah.
That's the key thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And he was basically like intimating that left unregulated, video game playing is going to affect the behavior of your child. And then once it becomes a problem, you're going to need to seek some form of therapy or psychological care. Like it's not as if he's saying might happen. He's basically like, if you don't regulate this is gonna probably lead to some behavioral problems.
So
yeah.
And then, well, if we liken it to somebody who's an alcoholic, you know, then which in fact we need to, in order to put it in the right perspective, then this is like a huge potential impact on your child or adult child's future.
So you have to know what you are bringing into your house when you are bringing this stuff into your house. And then also now, you don't even have to go to the shop and buy a games console anymore. if they have a PC, they already have a console, if you know what I mean. They already have as long as your child has a computer, they have access to games now. It's not like that before. Whereas like, back in the day, like, you know, you had to go out and still had to buy PC games. But now with the internet, gaming is just there. And then they have their phone. So like,
I say the phone, all you need is a phone.
Yeah. So the regulation now is not just, oh, should I bring a games console into my house? The consideration is, once again, what is my child doing online? And how could this potentially affect their brain? And now when we're bringing this to a spiritual perspective, there's no wonder why our children cannot pay attention in church. No wonder why they can't pray for more than 2 minutes, or Bible study with them seems hard, or anything to do with God is hard because their minds are programmed to be, if you're not, they can't be in it. So the devil is programming our children to never ever be able to receive anything spiritual. Because as we know, church is not, and Bible study and prayer meeting is not always, it's not always jumping, it's not always excitement, it's not always set to animate your flesh. The deep things of the spirit often don't necessarily animate your physical body. Sometimes it's just a deep spiritual inside thing that doesn't necessarily have a physical reaction. Yes, we know there's always sometimes a physical reaction, but how many times have we been in church where we have to press until we get the breakthrough, or we have to pray until we really pray? You know, where we have to spend time getting into God's presence. Now, do we get now why it's hard for young people to get into God's presence? Because you can't just run up into God's presence. There's a process, there's a way. So this is training our children against everything that would help them to be godly people. This is why not only, and we know parents need to do their job, but it's important that we keep certain things in church, like Sunday school. Because Sunday school and having your child come to church and sit in a church service, because now what they do now, we have children's service, and children's service is just basically to stimulate and excite the children. But actually, when I was growing up, sitting next to my mum in church helped me to be still. So now when I go to school, I know what it's like to be still in a lesson for half an hour, because I had to sit still next to my mom when she was on the choir, and I couldn't bring my wrestler toys to church. So I learned how to sit still in church. And in Sunday school, I learned how to sit and to process and comprehend information and learn memory. So do we see how the basic things of church are actually good and a counteraction against what the enemy is trying? But when now you have a lot of parents who don't want to bring their child to youth service, they don't want to bring their child to church, we're actually doing them a disservice. Because the basic things we have set up in church will help our children, not only for education, but spiritually. Because think about it, if you can't sit still and take in the word, where are we going? This five-minute prayer is not going to help us in this world of devils. And I'm not saying the longer you pray, the more spiritual you are, but we understand that we need to be able to spend time in God's presence uninhibited.
Absolutely.
Perhaps you've seen.
So this one now.
Okay, number 2, content problem. So obviously you got to screen the content you're going to show them. Don't do any of the horror content or scary things. One thing I found interesting is that they found that these are so much more immersive than anything else that can actually cause even mundane things to seem really, really scary to children. For example, there's a really cool animated short film called Invasion where some aliens come and there's a bunny, and basically one version they tested, the bunny actually dies. And what they found, even in adults, is that they were overly emotional about the death of this animated bunny because you're right there, you're with the bunny standing next to him. And so don't show them bunnies dying. Even things like thrill rides or roller coasters may be too much. One of my favorite apps is this little Jurassic Park app where a dinosaur comes up and gets right in your face. But I got to thinking about it from the perspective of a 2 or 4-year-old, it's probably way too scary for them. So in my case, I'm planning to just show them some Discovery VR content where they're just like standing in the woods in Alaska. Simple virtual reality, nothing that puts them through a deeper experience. Last but not least, emotional or psychological problems. I'll be honest, when I first looked into this, I was like, oh, come on. Well, interestingly enough, in 2009, Stanford did a study which found that when they showed kids virtual reality imagery of them swimming with whales or dancing with mice, and then later asked them, did that actually happen? The elementary aged kids said yes, it did. In effect, they were implanting false memories into the children because it was so realistic for the children. And by the way, that was 2009 virtual reality, which if you look at the study, the imagery is extremely rudimentary compared to what they can do today. Wait, so if I can implant false memories in my kids' minds through virtual reality,
and I don't know if anyone has ever seen the film Inception, but the basic concept of the movie is trying to input an idea and a memory in someone's mind. This is telling you it's possible with children. So the children, they had a VR experience. This is 10 years ago when VR graphics wasn't even as good as it is now. And when they asked the children later on, did what happened in the VR world really happen? They said yes, many of them.
Yep. That's what I've just wrote in there. From what he was saying, it's not going to be virtual reality, is it? That's the big issue.
And this is exactly what I was saying last week about, or 2 weeks ago, about the implanting and the agenda of Satan being, Metaverse being a place where the agenda of Satan will be implanted in the minds of our children. And because they are part of building this universe or this fake universe, they will not be able to, you will not be able to say to them, this is real and this is not real. Because if they're in this from a child, they literally will be trained to be against God.
Mm-hmm.
So, not much more that we really need.
Okay, number 2, content problems.
Actually, with regards to abuse, Sister Catherine and Sister Dion, Sister Barbara, listen very closely to what this guy says. This guy spent over 12 years in prison in the 80s for child abuse. And this is kind of taking it a bit left. This is not really specifically to do with the metaverse, but I want you to hear what he says about the methods he used to molest children. And it goes on with our theme for this year about the family.
How did you get them alone?
Grooming. I would check out their family situation. I would check out their clothing to see how well they were, financially. I would check out their social interaction with other kids. When we were on the ballparks or on the gym floor, I would make sure which ones I wanted to molest. I would give them special attention, congratulate them, talk to them when I know that I would never be allowed to talk to anybody else. Aside from everybody, I would give them the attention that an official is not supposed to give anybody. And it made them feel like, wow, he's paying me attention. It is a direct form of grooming.
Were there certain characteristics that you looked for in children before molesting them?
In children, yes, but more I also looked at their families. If I thought the father was a threat, I would not approach the child. If I thought that the child had friends that he would tell, I would not approach him. If I thought the child had friends that were in the same capacity he was, I would approach him. For the simple fact that if I could molest him, I could lure him into believing, grooming him into believing that he would enjoy it. And therefore, I could manipulate him into having his other friends come and be molested by me as well.
So perhaps a child that doesn't really have a whole lot of friends, maybe not really a strong family, things like that.
Yes, no spiritual values, weak in education, you know, needs help in many ways, even from split parenting, you know, has a mother who may be having problems with the family, you know, well, here comes superhero in to help out, you know, wow, well, thank you very much. No problem. You ever need me to take them away for the night so you can have a night out? No problem. It works.
How did you get?
So before we get into that, the metaverse will enable people like him to abuse people at a rate that we've never seen before. Because based on the principles that he's just expounded, and based on the fact that the metaverse is going to be a place where the children that he talks about will spend more of the time because they don't have any friends in real life, we can see what the devil is trying to do. But any comments on that video? Did anyone pick up? He said that if the dad is there,
Yeah,
he's not going to mess around.
so
They have no spiritual values. But go ahead, Catherine.
yeah, I was going to say no father, because obviously the father's not online. There may be a father in the home, but the father's not online with him. The friends aren't necessarily, the point is you do it in isolation, although that your friends might be down the road, but on the same game, but you are, and yeah, you're there by yourself. You're even if you have a good family structure, the family structure is not online with you.
Yeah. He's targeting families with no spiritual values, broken homes, children who are in need.
Education.
Yeah. Failing in education, and these people are adept at knowing what questions to ask children. So if you fast forward to what he was doing in the 80s to now, these people are going to know what to ask these children when they're online with them in the metaverse.
I think as well, it's funny how he kept saying, because I think he mentioned family like 3 or 4 times. And it shows the importance. And it's not just, I think he did say like the father not being there, but he said something key like the dissembling of the family unit, like the parent is not connected to the wider family. So if they're by themselves, is like that's an opportunity because, oh, let me keep your child for the night, you know, you're tired, It just shows to us again, nothing that we don't know, that when we venture away from the order of which God has set, we open ourselves to abuse, manipulation, brokenness and hurt, damage, sin and death. That's all, I think that's all this study is showing us, the whole thing. But we have the ability to go back to God, to submit ourselves to his order, to the way he wants us to live our lives. And that's how we're going to find life.
Yeah.
100%. So I'm not going to go over the rest of this summary. We get the point, and we've heard it before. But let's get into this week's topic. Good. Oh, let me just say, we have the answer, and Stadion, exactly what Stadion was saying. The answer is for us to go back to God's order. And in terms of moving forward, like I said, we're going to explore how the body of Christ can effectively start to pull people out of the things that the devil is creating, the machinery, the different avenues he's creating to trap people. Our job is to pull people out, and God has provided strategy for us. We just have to ask him for it. But we'll get back to that in the future.